My granddaughter came after 10 years of silence. "Grandpa, I missed you so much." 2 days later, she asked me to sign documents for the bank. I signed. She left happy. But she didn't know that I worked as a notary for 30 years, and immediately saw these weren't bank papers. "I'm glad you're here with me. Please listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled." I spent 30 years as a notary public in Oregon. And in that time, I learned one crucial lesson. People will lie to your face while smiling, especially when money is involved. After my wife Margaret passed 3 years ago, I thought I'd seen the worst of human nature. I was wrong. My name is Robert Chen, 72 years old, and I live alone in the house Margaret and I bought in 1981, a modest 2-story craftsman in northeast Portland worth about $800,000 now, thanks to the market. My daughter Linda died in a car accident 15 years ago, leaving behind her daughter, my granddaughter Emma. Emma was 8 then. Her father, never much involved, moved to California and started a new family. For 10 years I heard nothing from Emma. Not a birthday card, not a phone call, not even a text message when I finally got a smartphone 2 years ago. I told myself she was busy with college, with her life, with being 23. Young people have their own worlds now. I didn't want to be the demanding grandfather, so I waited. And waited. Then, on a Tuesday in October, my doorbell rang at 6 in the evening. "Grandpa!" Emma stood on my porch, arms outstretched, tears streaming down her face. "I've missed you so much." She looked different, older, obviously, but also harder somehow. Designer jeans, expensive leather jacket, makeup applied with precision. But her smile was the same smile I remembered from when she was little, when I'd take her to the zoo and buy her cotton candy. What do you do when someone you love appears after a decade of silence? You let them in, you make tea, you listen to their excuses. "I was so angry after Mum died," she said, sitting on my couch, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "I blamed everyone, including you. I know it wasn't fair. I've been in therapy, Grandpa. I've worked through it, and I realized I've wasted 10 years being stubborn when I could have had you in my life." It sounded rehearsed, but I wanted to believe it. I'm not a fool. 30 years as a notary teaches you to read people, but I'm also human. I'm a lonely old man whose granddaughter just apologized. We spent 2 days together. She took me to lunch at a nice Italian place downtown. She showed me photos on her phone of her apartment in Seattle, her job at a marketing firm, her boyfriend, Devon. She laughed at my stories about her mother as a child. She asked about Margaret, and I cried, and she held my hand. On the second evening, Thursday, she brought a folder to the dinner table. "Grandpa, I need a favor," she said, her tone shifting slightly. "My bank is refinancing my mortgage, and they need a co-signer verification. It's just a formality. You won't be responsible for anything, but they need a family member's signature to confirm my identity and employment history." She slid 3 documents across the table. Official-looking papers with bank letterhead, dense paragraphs of legal text, signature lines highlighted in yellow. "It'll just take a minute," she said, handing me a pen. "Sign at the bottom of each page." I looked at her face. Still smiling, still my granddaughter, but something felt wrong. I picked up the first document and read the header. Quitclaim deed. Not co-signer verification form. Not anything related to mortgage refinancing. 30 years as a notary means you can spot a fake document from across a room. The letterhead was wrong, slightly off-color, wrong font. The legal language was formatted incorrectly. And most importantly, this wasn't a bank document at all. It was a property transfer form, poorly disguised, attempting to transfer my house into Emma's name. I kept my face neutral. I'd learned that skill too, in my years witnessing signatures, watching people commit fraud right in front of me, sometimes catching them, sometimes not. "Let me get my reading glasses," I said calmly. "My eyes aren't what they used to be." I went to my bedroom and sat on the edge of my bed, my hands shaking. Not from age, from rage. My granddaughter, the little girl I'd taught to ride a bike, whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose college fund I'd started before her mother died, had just tried to steal my house. I returned to the kitchen. Emma was on her phone, texting rapidly. "You know what?" I said. "Let me look at these more carefully tomorrow morning when I'm fresh. It's been a long day." Her smile tightened. "It's really simple, Grandpa. The bank needs them back by Friday." "Tomorrow?" I repeated firmly. She left an hour later, kissing my cheek, promising to return in the morning. I watched her drive away in a new BMW, purchased with what money, I wondered? I spent that night at my kitchen table, examining the documents under my desk lamp, my notary stamp and seal sitting beside me like old friends, the quitclaim deed, the power of attorney form, the third document, a forged affidavit claiming I was mentally incapacitated and required a guardian. 3 documents that would have left me homeless and powerless. Emma didn't return Friday morning. She didn't return at all. She'd gotten what she came for, or so she thought. What she didn't know was that I'd photographed every document. I'd already scanned them and sent copies to my email, and I'd made some phone calls. After 30 years as a notary, I knew exactly what came next in cases of attempted fraud, and I intended to use every bit of that knowledge. I didn't sleep that Friday night. I sat in my home office, Margaret's old sewing room that I'd converted into a workspace after she passed, surrounded by documents I'd accumulated over 3 decades as a notary, reference books on property law, binders full of case studies on fraud, my old files meticulously organized. How much had I lost already? Not the house. I'd caught that before signing. But what about the emotional cost? The 10 years I'd mourned the absence of my granddaughter, believing she'd simply grown distant, when in reality she'd been, what? Planning this? Waiting until I was old enough, lonely enough, vulnerable enough? I made coffee at 3 in the morning and sat at the kitchen table where Emma had presented those fake documents. The same table where I'd helped her with elementary school homework, where I'd served her birthday cake when she turned 7, where Margaret and I had discussed our retirement plans. Had any of it been real? Or had I always been nothing more than a bank account to her? The rage came in waves. I'd clench my fists until my knuckles went white, then force myself to breathe slowly, deliberately. Rage clouds judgment, and I needed clarity now more than ever. By Saturday morning, I'd reached a decision. I wouldn't just protect myself. I would make sure Emma faced consequences for this attempted theft. Real consequences, legal consequences. But I needed to be smart about this. Methodical. If I went to the police immediately, what would happen? She'd claim it was a misunderstanding. She'd say I'd misread the documents because of my age. She'd produce a witness, probably that boyfriend Devon she'd mentioned, or whoever had helped her create these forgeries, who would testify that I'd seemed confused, forgetful. No. First, I photographed the fake documents from multiple angles, with timestamps. I scanned them in high resolution. I made detailed notes about when Emma had arrived, what she'd said, how she'd presented the papers. Then I examined the documents more carefully under natural light. The quitclaim deed listed Emma as the grantee, the person receiving property rights. The power of attorney would have given her control over my finances and medical decisions. The mental incapacity affidavit, supposedly signed by Dr. Richard Morrison, was perhaps the most insulting. It claimed I suffered from advanced dementia and couldn't manage my own affairs. I called Dr. Morrison's office, my actual doctor, whom I'd seen for 15 years. The receptionist confirmed what I'd suspected. The signature on the affidavit was forged. Dr. Morrison had never written such a document. "Would you like to report this?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "But I'll need an official statement from Dr. Morrison eventually. Can you start preparing that?" "Of course, Mr. Chen. He'll be concerned to hear about this. Next, I contacted my bank. I explained the situation to my personal banker, James, whom I'd known for 20 years. "I need to lock down my accounts," I said. "Complete freeze on any new authorizations, changes to beneficiaries, or transfers over $500 without in-person verification with 2 forms of ID." "Jesus, Rob," James said. "Your own granddaughter?" "My own granddaughter. Consider it done. I'll also flag your account for potential elder fraud. If anyone tries anything suspicious, we'll know immediately." I spent Saturday afternoon visiting my lawyer, Tom Bradley. Tom and I had worked together on numerous cases over the years, me notarizing documents, him filing them in court. "I want to prosecute," I told him, spreading the fake documents across his desk. "But I want to do this right. I want her caught red-handed, with no room for excuses." Tom adjusted his glasses and examined each document carefully. "These are crude forgeries, almost insultingly bad. Did she think you wouldn't notice? She thought I was old and trusting." "You are old," Tom said with a slight smile, "but you're not stupid. Here's what I recommend. Don't confront her yet. Let her think it worked. See if she makes the next move. Tries to file these documents, tries to access your accounts. Each action she takes adds another charge. Isn't that entrapment? No, entrapment is when law enforcement induces someone to commit a crime they wouldn't otherwise commit. This is simply giving a criminal enough rope to hang herself. She's already committed attempted fraud by creating these documents and presenting them to you. If she goes further, that's her choice." I nodded slowly. "So I wait. You document everything. You prepare your evidence. And when she makes her next move, you spring the trap." I left Tom's office feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Purposeful. Margaret used to say I came alive when I had a problem to solve, a puzzle to work through. She was right. That evening I organized my evidence into a clear timeline. October 17th, Emma arrives after 10 years of no contact. October 19th, Emma presents fraudulent documents. October 20th, Emma disappears without explanation. October 21st, I confirm forgery of doctor's signature. Now I needed to predict her next move. Would she try to file the quitclaim deed anyway, hoping I'd actually signed it in confusion? Would she send someone else to pressure me? Would she attempt to have me declared incompetent through the fake medical affidavit? I didn't have to wait long for the answer. On Monday morning, I received an email from the Multnomah County Recording Office, an automated notification, the kind sent to property owners when someone attempts to file documents related to their property. Notice: quitclaim deed filing pending for 2847 NE Hancock Street, Portland, OR 97212. She'd done it. Emma had actually tried to file the fraudulent deed. My hands were steady as I clicked through the attached PDF. There was my signature, or rather, what was supposed to be my signature. She'd forged it. Poorly. The loops were wrong. The pressure inconsistent. Anyone comparing it to my actual signature would see the discrepancy immediately. But would anyone compare? Or would this sail through the bureaucratic system, filed and recorded, transferring my home to Emma before I even knew what happened? I called Tom Bradley immediately. "She filed it," I said. "Perfect," Tom replied. "That's the proof we needed. Filing a fraudulent document is a felony. Now we have her. What do I do?" "Go to the county recorder's office today. Bring your identification and proof of your actual signature. Old documents, notarized papers with your real signature. File an objection and alert them to the forgery. I'll meet you there in an hour." The county recorder's office occupies a bland government building downtown, all fluorescent lights and worn linoleum. I'd spent countless hours there over my career, filing documents, verifying seals, ensuring every I was dotted and every T crossed. The clerk at the counter, a young woman named Sarah, whom I'd known for about 5 years, recognized me immediately. "Mr. Chen, we don't see you much anymore since you retired. How can I help you?" I slid the email notification across the counter. Someone is trying to steal my house. Her expression changed from friendly to serious in an instant. Tell me everything. I explained the situation. Emma's visit, the fake documents, the forged signature. Sarah pulled up the pending filing on her computer. The signature does look off, she said, squinting at the screen. But these things get filed automatically unless there's a formal objection. You got the notification because you're listed as the current owner, but most people don't check their email regularly. That's what she was counting on, I said. That I'd be too old or too trusting to notice until it was too late. Tom arrived, and together we filed a formal objection. Sarah placed an immediate hold on the quitclaim deed and flagged Emma's name in the system. If she tries to file anything else related to your property, we'll know, Sarah said. And Mr. Chen, I'm sorry this is happening to you. Thank you, Sarah. But I'm not sorry. I'm angry. And anger is useful. From the county office, Tom and I went directly to the police station. We filed a report for attempted real estate fraud, identity theft, and forgery. The detective assigned to the case, a weary-looking man named Patterson, took notes with the enthusiasm of someone who'd seen this story 100 times before. Elder fraud is epidemic, he said. Family members are usually the perpetrators. You're lucky you caught it. I'm lucky I was a notary for 30 years. I corrected him. Otherwise, I'd be homeless right now. We'll investigate. But I need to be honest with you, Mr. Chen. These cases are hard to prosecute. She'll claim it was a misunderstanding. Her lawyer will say you're confused about what you signed. Juries are sympathetic to young defendants. Not when I testify, I said quietly. Not when I show them my credentials, my experience, and the clear evidence of forgery. Not when her own actions demonstrate consciousness of guilt. Tom nodded. We've documented everything. We have the timeline. We have expert witnesses ready to testify about the forgery. And most importantly, we have Mr. Chen himself, sharp, credible, and very believable. Detective Patterson shrugged. Okay, I'll add it to the case file. We'll contact her for questioning. As Tom and I walked back to his car, he said, You realize what you've just done, right? You've declared war. She declared war when she knocked on my door with those fake documents. Fair point, but now she knows you're onto her. She'll escalate or retreat. My guess, she'll escalate. Tom was right. That evening, my phone rang. Emma. Grandpa, what the hell? Her voice was sharp, aggressive, nothing like the sweet tone she'd used during her visit. The county recorder called me. They said you're blocking my deed? I don't understand. I let the silence hang for a moment. Then I said, very calmly, Emma, I was a notary for 30 years. Did you really think I wouldn't recognize fraudulent documents? Another pause. Then, I don't know what you're talking about. You signed those papers. You agreed to help me. I signed nothing, and we both know it. You're old, Grandpa. You're confused. Maybe you forgot. I've already filed a police report, I interrupted, for fraud, forgery, and attempted theft. The detective's name is Patterson, if you'd like to turn yourself in. You fucking bastard, she hissed. That house should be mine. Mom was your only daughter. I'm your only grandchild. You're going to die soon anyway. I hung up. My hands were shaking now, but not from fear, from vindication. She'd just confessed, essentially, revealed her true nature. And I'd recorded the entire conversation on my smartphone, a trick Tom had taught me to set up before answering. The point of no return had passed. Now came the real battle. I spent Tuesday morning fortifying my defenses. Tom helped me file a restraining order against Emma, citing her threatening phone call and attempted fraud. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s who'd probably seen countless elder abuse cases, granted it immediately. Ms. Chen is prohibited from contacting you directly or indirectly, she said. She cannot come within 500 feet of your residence. Violation will result in immediate arrest. I also met with a financial advisor Tom recommended, a specialist in protecting elderly clients from exploitation. Together, we restructured my assets, created an irrevocable trust for the house, moved my savings into accounts that required multiple authorizations, and established a living will that explicitly stated my mental competence and named Tom as my power of attorney should I ever need one. These measures will make it nearly impossible for anyone to access your assets without your explicit, verified consent, the advisor explained. Even if someone obtained fraudulent documents, the trust protects the house. The banks will flag any suspicious activity. You're locked down tight. I felt a grim satisfaction. Emma had tried to steal everything I'd built with Margaret. Now she couldn't touch a penny, but I underestimated her desperation. Wednesday afternoon, as I was having lunch, just a sandwich at my kitchen table, the same table where this nightmare began, my doorbell rang. Insistently, over and over, I looked through the peephole. A man I didn't recognize stood on my porch. 30s, athletic build, expensive casual clothes. The boyfriend? Devon? I cracked the door open, keeping the chain lock engaged. "Can I help you?" "Mr. Chen, I'm Devon Martinez, Emma's fiancé." His smile was practiced, smooth. "I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Can we talk?" "She has a restraining order. That includes people acting on her behalf." "I'm not acting on her behalf. I'm trying to help both of you. Family shouldn't fight like this." She tried to steal my house. Devon's smile never wavered. "Emma told me there was confusion about some documents. Look, she's distraught. She loves you. She made a mistake." "A felony isn't a mistake. It's a crime." His smile finally cracked. "Mr. Chen, you need to think carefully about what you're doing. Emma has a future ahead of her. A career. Do you really want to destroy that over a misunderstanding? Drop the charges? Withdraw the restraining order? Let's all move forward as family?" "I don't have a family anymore. I have a criminal who happens to share my blood." Devon's expression hardened. "Emma mentioned you might be difficult, that you've been having memory problems, maybe confusion about what you signed and didn't sign." There it was, the threat barely veiled. They were going to claim I was mentally incompetent. I have a signed statement from my doctor confirming I have no cognitive impairment. I said calmly. "I have 30 years of professional experience as a notary. I have documented evidence of forgery, and I have a recording of Emma admitting she believes my house should be hers because I'm going to die soon anyway." Devon's jaw tightened. "You recorded her?" "I did. Washington is a two-party consent state, but Oregon isn't. That recording is perfectly admissible in court." "You son of a bitch! Get off my property before I call the police and have you arrested for violating the restraining order." He stared at me for a long moment. I could see him weighing his options, calculating whether intimidation might still work. I stared back, my hand resting on my phone in my pocket, ready to dial 911. Finally, he turned and walked away. I watched through the window as he got into a black Range Rover, the same car Emma had driven when she'd visited. They were living together then, probably planning this together. I immediately called Detective Patterson and reported the violation. He sounded more interested now. "Okay, so it's not just the granddaughter. She's got an accomplice. That changes things. I'll bring him in for questioning." He threatened to claim I'm mentally incompetent. "Let them try. We'll get your doctor to testify. We'll show the jury your work history. Mr. Chen, I'm starting to think you have a strong case here." That evening, Tom called. "I heard about the boyfriend's visit. How are you holding up?" "I'm fine," I said. But I wasn't fine. My hands had been shaking all afternoon. Not from fear, exactly. From the adrenaline of confrontation. From the realization that Emma and Devon weren't going to back down quietly. "Take a few days," Tom advised. "Rest. Let me handle the legal machinery for a bit. The restraining order is in place. Your assets are protected. The criminal investigation is proceeding. You don't need to do anything right now except take care of yourself." He was right. I was 72 years old, and I'd been running on rage and coffee for nearly a week. Margaret used to worry about my blood pressure. What would she think of me now, waging war against our granddaughter? But then I remembered Emma's words. "You're going to die soon anyway." No, Margaret would understand. Margaret would want me to fight. I spent Thursday and Friday quietly. I watched old movies. I ate properly for the first time in days. Real meals, not just sandwiches. I took walks around the neighborhood, nodding to neighbors who'd known me and Margaret for decades. Mrs. Kowalski, who lived 3 houses down, stopped me on Friday afternoon. "Robert, is everything okay? I saw a strange man at your door on Wednesday, very aggressive looking." "Just some trouble with family," I said. She frowned. "Your granddaughter, the one who visited last week? You saw her?" "Of course, it's unusual, so I noticed. She was here about a month ago too, actually. Just for a few minutes, she was taking pictures of your house with her phone." My blood ran cold. "A month ago?" "Yes, early September, I think. I almost came over to say hello, but she left quickly. I assumed she was just nostalgic, looking at her childhood home." She hadn't been nostalgic. She'd been planning, casing the property, photographing it to show potential buyers, maybe, or to use in her fraudulent documents. This wasn't an impulsive crime. This was premeditated, calculated. And that meant I needed to be even more careful about what came next. The letter arrived on Saturday morning, delivered by regular mail. Expensive stationery, my name and address written in elegant cursive. Inside, a handwritten note from Emma. "Dear Grandpa, I don't know how things got so out of control. I never meant to hurt you. I was desperate. Devon and I have debts I haven't told you about, and I panicked. I made terrible choices. But I'm your granddaughter. I'm Linda's daughter. Doesn't that count for something? I'm begging you, drop the charges. Let's sit down and talk, really talk, without lawyers and police. I'll pay back anything I owe you. I'll make this right. Please don't destroy my life over one mistake. You raised Mom to believe in forgiveness. She would want us to find a way forward. Love, Emma." I read it 3 times, standing in my kitchen. The handwriting was beautiful. Emma had always had excellent penmanship, even as a child. The words were carefully chosen, pushing every emotional button. Linda, forgiveness, family, love. A month ago, this letter might have worked. Hell, a week ago, before Devon showed up at my door, it might have worked. But I'd learned something in my 30 years as a notary. Con artists are excellent writers. They know exactly which words will tug at your heartstrings, which memories to invoke, which vulnerabilities to exploit. I photographed the letter, sent it to Tom and Detective Patterson, and filed it with my other evidence. Then I wrote a reply. Short, clear. "Emma, your mother would want me to protect myself from theft and fraud. She would want me to ensure that her daughter faces consequences for her actions, because that's how people learn and grow. I will not drop the charges. I will not meet with you. I will testify against you in court. You could have called me any time in the last 10 years. You could have told me you needed help. Instead, you chose deception and theft. This is not one mistake. This is a series of calculated decisions, researching property law, creating fraudulent documents, forging signatures, lying to my face for 2 days, attempting to file the deed, sending your boyfriend to intimidate me, and now trying to manipulate me with references to your dead mother. Every choice has consequences. You're about to learn that. Grandpa, I didn't send it. Tom had advised me not to communicate with Emma at all. Anything I wrote could be used to claim I was harassing her, or that I was confused about the situation. But writing it felt good. It clarified my thinking. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. Father Michael from St. Mary's, the Catholic church Margaret and I had attended for 40 years. I hadn't been to Mass since her funeral, but I still knew him. "Robert, I heard you were having family troubles," he said when I opened the door. "May I come in?" I hesitated. Had Emma sent him? But Father Michael's face showed genuine concern, not the calculated charm of Devon or Emma's fake tears. "Of course, Father." We sat in my living room. He didn't lecture or preach. He simply asked me to tell him what happened. So I did. Everything. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Robert, I've known you for decades. You're one of the most principled men I've ever met. And I want you to know, what you're doing isn't revenge. It's justice. There's a difference. The letter says I should forgive her. Forgiveness doesn't mean allowing someone to hurt you repeatedly without consequences. Christ forgave, yes. But he also overturned the tables of the money changers in the temple. Righteous anger against wrongdoing is biblical." I felt something loosen in my chest. I keep wondering if I'm being too harsh. She's my granddaughter. She's also an adult who tried to steal your home through fraud. If you don't hold her accountable, she'll do this to someone else. Maybe someone more vulnerable than you. We talked for another hour. Father Michael offered to pray with me, and though I'm not as devout as Margaret was, I accepted. When he left, I felt steadier, less alone. The next day, Sunday, Mrs. Kowalski invited me for dinner. "You shouldn't be alone right now," she said firmly. "Come over at 6. I'm making pierogi." Her dining room was warm and cluttered with family photos. Her children and grandchildren smiled down from the walls. We ate, and I told her the whole story too. "My nephew tried something similar with his father," she said, shaking her head. "Not as sophisticated as your Emma, but the same idea. Family members think they're entitled to inheritance before you're even dead. It's disgusting." "What happened with your nephew?" "My brother prosecuted. The nephew went to jail for 2 years. When he got out, he apologized. Genuinely apologized. Now he works at a grocery store and has stayed out of trouble. Sometimes people need to hit rock bottom before they change. And sometimes they don't change at all." "True," she agreed, "but at least you protect others from them." Over the next few days, I found support in unexpected places. My doctor's office called to check on me. Sarah from the county recorder's office emailed to say she was thinking of me. My financial advisor sent a message. "Hang in there. You're doing the right thing." Even Tom, usually all business, called just to chat. "How are you really doing, Rob?" "Better," I admitted. "Angry, but better." "Good. Channel that anger. The preliminary hearing is in 2 weeks. Emma and her lawyer will try to get the charges dismissed. We need to be ready." "I'm ready." And I was. Emma had tried to isolate me, to make me feel like I had no one. But I had my community, my friends, my principles. She had lies and greed. In the long run, I knew which was stronger. The violation came on a Tuesday evening, exactly 2 weeks after Devon's first visit. I was reading in my living room when I saw headlights in my driveway. The BMW, Emma's car. I immediately reached for my phone, ready to call 911. But before I could dial, I heard voices. Multiple people. Through the window, I saw Emma, Devon, and another woman, older, professional-looking, carrying a briefcase. They approached my front door. The doorbell rang. I opened it with the chain lock engaged, phone in hand. "Emma, you're violating the restraining order. I'm calling the police." "Wait." The older woman stepped forward. "Mr. Chen, I'm Barbara Walsh, Emma's attorney. I've advised my client that she can be present during legal negotiations if accompanied by counsel. We're here to discuss a resolution." "There's nothing to discuss." Barbara smiled. Practiced, professional, slightly condescending. "Mr. Chen, my client is willing to make significant concessions, but we need to talk face to face. Surely you can spare 15 minutes to hear a settlement offer?" I looked at Emma. She was crying, or pretending to cry, mascara running artfully down her cheeks. Devon stood behind her, his expression carefully neutral. Against my better judgment, I let them in. I kept my phone recording in my pocket. They sat on my couch, the same couch where Emma had sat 2 weeks ago, pretending to care about me. Barbara opened her briefcase and pulled out documents. Here's our proposal, she said. Emma will drop any claim to your property. In exchange, you'll drop all criminal charges and agree not to pursue civil damages. Clean slate. Everyone moves on. No. Barbara blinked. I haven't finished explaining. The answer is no. Emma committed multiple felonies. She doesn't get to walk away just because it didn't work. Emma spoke up, voice trembling. Grandpa, please. I'll lose everything. My job, my reputation, my future. Is that really what you want? You should have thought about that before you tried to steal my house. Devon leaned forward, his calm facade cracking. Jesus Christ, old man. She's trying to apologize. She's offering you an out. Take it. Devon, Barbara warned. But Devon ignored her. You know what? Fuck this. Emma was right. You're just a bitter old bastard who wants to punish her for having a life while you rot in this house alone. Her mom died 15 years ago. Get over it. Stop using Emma as your emotional punching bag. Devon! Barbara stood up. That's enough. But the mask was off now. Emma's tears had dried, replaced with cold anger. He's right. You've always been like this, Grandpa. Mom complained about it constantly. You always had to be right. Always had to control everything. You drove her crazy. I felt the words like physical blows. Linda had complained about me. My daughter, who I'd loved more than anything. But then I remembered. Emma was 8 when Linda died. What did she actually remember of her mother's feelings? Or was this just more manipulation? Your mother and I had our disagreements, I said slowly. Every parent and child do. But she never, ever would have approved of what you've done. And you know it. Emma stood up abruptly. This is pointless. He's not going to listen. Barbara tried to regain control. Mr. Chen, please consider our offer. If this goes to trial, the details will become public. Your granddaughter will be branded a felon. Your family's dirty laundry will be aired in court. Is that really what Margaret would have wanted? Now they were invoking Margaret. My wife. My partner of 45 years. Don't you dare speak about my wife, I said, my voice cold. Margaret would have wanted me to stand up for what's right. She would have wanted Emma to face consequences for her actions, and she would have been ashamed that her granddaughter turned into a thief. Fuck you, Emma shouted. That house should be mine. You and Grandma never even had to work for it. Your parents gave you the down payment. You just got lucky with the market. I'm drowning in debt while you sit on almost $1 million in equity, and you won't even help your own family. There it was. The truth. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't desperate. She was entitled. She believed my house belonged to her simply because she wanted it. Get out of my house, I said quietly. You're making a mistake, Barbara said, gathering her documents. This offer won't be on the table at the preliminary hearing. If you proceed with prosecution, we'll fight. We'll bring in expert witnesses to testify about your age and potential cognitive decline. I have medical records proving I'm perfectly competent. Records can be challenged. We'll argue you manipulated Emma, that you invited her here specifically to entrap her. I have recordings proving otherwise, and a neighbor who saw Emma photographing my house a month before her visit, clearly showing premeditation. Barbara's expression hardened. Then we'll go to the media. We'll tell them about the cruel grandfather prosecuting his orphaned granddaughter over a misunderstanding. Do it, I interrupted. Go to the press. Let them investigate. They'll find a young woman living well beyond her means, driving a luxury car, wearing designer clothes while claiming poverty. They'll find the fake documents. They'll find Devon's criminal record. Oh yes, Detective Patterson told me about his fraud conviction in California. You picked quite a fiancé, Emma. Emma's face went pale. Devon's jaw clenched. Let's go, Devon said, grabbing Emma's arm. He's a lost cause. They left in a storm of fury. Barbara paused at the door. You're going to regret this, Mr. Chen. The only thing I regret is not seeing Emma's true nature sooner. After they left, I sat in my living room, my whole body shaking, not just from anger now, from fear. Barbara's threats echoed in my mind. Could they actually paint me as the villain? Could they convince a jury I'd somehow manipulated Emma? I called Tom, even though it was nearly 9 p.m. "They came to your house," he said, instantly alert. "That's a clear restraining order violation, regardless of what her lawyer claimed." Should I be worried about their threats? No. They're desperate. The evidence against Emma is solid. They know they're going to lose, so they're trying to scare you into dropping charges. Don't fall for it. After hanging up, I sat in the darkness of my living room. The house creaked around me. Familiar sounds that had comforted me for decades. Margaret's presence still lingered here, in the photos on the walls, in the furniture we'd chosen together, in the garden she'd planted. Emma had tried to take all of this, not because she needed it, because she felt entitled to it. My fear transformed back into resolve. They wanted a fight? They'd get one. The preliminary hearing took place on a grey November morning. Multnomah County Courthouse, Department 12, Judge Elizabeth Reardon presiding. I'd been in courtrooms hundreds of times as a notary, witnessing signatures on affidavits and depositions, but I'd never been the victim in a criminal case. Tom sat beside me at the prosecution table. Across the aisle, Emma sat with Barbara Walsh and Devon. Emma wore a modest dress, pearls, minimal makeup, the costume of an innocent young woman wrongly accused. Devon wore a suit. Both projected an image of respectable citizens caught up in an unfortunate misunderstanding. Judge Reardon, a woman in her late 50s with steel-grey hair and an expression that suggested she suffered no fools, reviewed the case file. "The state is charging Ms. Emma Chen with attempted grand theft, forgery, identity theft, and filing a fraudulent document. Ms. Walsh, your client wishes to enter a plea?" "Not guilty, Your Honor. Furthermore, we move to dismiss all charges. The alleged victim, Mr. Robert Chen, is the defendant's grandfather. This is a family dispute being criminalized due to Mr. Chen's misunderstanding of documents he voluntarily signed." "Your Honor." Tom stood. "The state has compelling evidence that this was not a misunderstanding, but a calculated attempt to steal Mr. Chen's home through fraudulent documents. We have expert testimony, witness statements, and recorded admissions." "I'll hear arguments," Judge Reardon said. "Mr. Bradley, proceed." Tom presented our case methodically. He showed the forged quitclaim deed, highlighting the signature discrepancies. He presented my credentials, 30 years as a notary public, thousands of documents verified, expert knowledge of legal forms and signatures. Mr. Chen immediately recognized these documents as fraudulent. Tom explained. He photographed them, contacted authorities, and took measures to protect his property. This is not the behavior of a confused elderly man. This is the behavior of an experienced professional who caught a crime in progress. Barbara countered smoothly. "Your Honor, my client visited her grandfather after years of estrangement. She brought some financial documents to discuss legitimately confusing paperwork regarding property planning. Mr. Chen, at age 72, may have misinterpreted their purpose. The signature on the filed deed may have been signed during a different context, with Mr. Chen's permission." "I never signed anything," I said loudly. Judge Reardon looked at me. "Mr. Chen, you'll have an opportunity to testify. For now, please remain silent." Tom called me to the stand. I took the oath, my hand steady on the Bible. 30 years of professional credibility came down to this moment. "Mr. Chen," Tom began, "please describe your professional background." "I worked as a notary public in Oregon for 30 years, from 1985 to 2015. During that time, I notarized approximately 15,000 documents. I was trained to identify fraudulent documents, forged signatures, and invalid legal forms. I never had a single complaint filed against me with the state board." "And when Emma presented you with documents on October 19th, what did you observe?" "I immediately recognized them as fraudulent. The quitclaim deed had incorrect letterhead, improper formatting, and was presented under false pretenses, she claimed they were bank documents for mortgage refinancing. The power of attorney form would have given her complete control over my finances. The medical affidavit falsely claimed I had dementia, with a forged doctor's signature. Barbara cross-examined aggressively. Mr. Chen, isn't it possible you simply forgot signing these documents? At your age, memory lapses are common. I have never had a diagnosis of dementia or any cognitive impairment. My doctor has provided written testimony to that effect. I take no medications that affect memory, and I certainly would remember signing away my house. But you were lonely, weren't you? After 10 years of no contact with Emma, you were emotional when she visited. Perhaps you agreed to help her and later regretted it? I was happy to see her, until she tried to steal from me. That's an accusation, not a fact. It's a fact, I said calmly. I have a recording of Emma stating, quote, "You're going to die soon anyway. That house should be mine." That's not the statement of someone confused about a misunderstanding. That's the statement of someone who got caught committing fraud. The courtroom went silent. Barbara's expression flickered. Surprise, then quick recovery. Tom played the recording. Emma's voice filled the courtroom. "You fucking bastard! That house should be mine. Mum was your only daughter. I'm your only grandchild. You're going to die soon anyway." Emma's face went white. Devon stared at his hands. Judge Reardon's expression hardened. "Ms. Walsh, do you have an explanation for that recording?" "Your Honor, my client was upset. Your client admitted to believing she was entitled to property that doesn't belong to her and referenced Mr. Chen's eventual death as justification. That demonstrates consciousness of wrongdoing." Tom continued. "We also have testimony from Mr. Chen's neighbor, who observed Emma photographing his house a month before her visit. Evidence of premeditation. We have confirmation from Dr. Morrison that his signature on the medical affidavit was forged. We have bank records showing Emma's financial desperation. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a calculated crime." Barbara tried to salvage the situation. "Your Honor, even if my client made errors in judgment, this matter should be resolved through civil proceedings, not criminal prosecution. Your client committed multiple felonies." Judge Reardon interrupted. "She forged documents, filed fraudulent deeds, and attempted to steal real property through deception. Mr. Bradley, does the state wish to proceed to trial?" "Yes, Your Honor. Motion to dismiss is denied. Ms. Emma Chen, you will stand trial on all charges. Bail is set at $50,000. Trial date will be set within 60 days. Emma burst into tears. Real tears this time, not the manufactured ones from earlier. Devon put his arm around her, whispering urgently. Barbara gathered her papers, her face tight with frustration. I sat perfectly still, feeling a cold satisfaction settle over me. This wasn't victory yet. The trial still loomed. But it was validation. The judge believed me. The evidence spoke for itself. As we left the courtroom, Tom squeezed my shoulder. That went as well as it could have. The judge saw right through their strategy. What happens next? They'll probably offer a plea deal. Barbara knows they'll lose at trial. Emma might plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for avoiding prison time. And if she doesn't, then we go to trial, and we win. Outside the courthouse, the November rain was falling. I stood under the overhang, watching Emma and Devon argue beside their car. She was gesturing wildly, crying, while he looked increasingly frustrated. They'd lost control of the narrative. They'd lost the moral high ground. They'd lost. I turned and walked to my car, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The plea deal offer came 3 days after the preliminary hearing. Barbara Walsh called Tom directly. My client is willing to plead guilty to attempted fraud. Tom told me over the phone. In exchange, the state would drop the identity theft and forgery charges. She'd receive probation, community service, and restitution for your legal fees. No prison time. Not under this deal. First offense, white-collar crime. Young defendant. The DA thinks probation is reasonable. What do you think? Tom was quiet for a moment. I think Emma committed serious crimes and deserves serious consequences. But I also think trials are expensive, time-consuming, and stressful. You're 72, Rob. Do you really want to spend the next 6 months preparing testimony, sitting through court proceedings, being cross-examined by Barbara Walsh? Yes, I said without hesitation. I want Emma to face real consequences. I want a jury to hear what she did. I want it on the public record that she's a convicted felon, not someone who got a slap on the wrist for attempted fraud. Okay, Tom said. Then we go to trial. The trial began in January, 2.5 months after Emma's fraudulent visit. The courtroom was nearly empty. No media, no cameras, just the principals. Me, Tom, Emma, Devon, Barbara, and the jury of 12 citizens who would decide Emma's fate. The prosecution presented its case over 3 days. Tom called witness after witness, building an overwhelming mountain of evidence. Dr. Morrison testified about the forged medical affidavit. I never wrote such a document. Mr. Chen is one of my healthiest patients. Cognitively, he's sharp as anyone I treat. This signature is absolutely not mine. Sarah from the county recorder's office testified about the fraudulent deed filing. The document was clearly forged. Mr. Chen's actual signature, which we have on file from dozens of legitimate notarizations he performed, looks nothing like the signature on this quitclaim deed. Mrs. Kowalski testified about seeing Emma photograph my house in September. She spent about 10 minutes taking pictures from different angles. I thought it was odd at the time, but didn't think much of it until Mr. Chen told me what happened. Detective Patterson testified about his investigation. Mr. Chen's evidence was meticulously documented. The timeline clearly showed premeditation, surveillance in September, the visit in October, the fraudulent filing immediately after. This wasn't an impulsive act. And then I testified. Barbara's cross-examination was aggressive, but I'd spent 30 years maintaining composure under pressure. Mr. Chen, you claim you never signed these documents. But isn't it possible you simply don't remember? No, you were emotional when Emma visited. You admitted being happy to see her. Couldn't emotion have clouded your judgment? Emotion made me want to believe her story. Professional experience made me recognize the truth. That's why I asked for time to review the documents more carefully, because I needed to overcome my emotional response and trust my training. You recorded your granddaughter without her knowledge. Isn't that a violation of trust? She violated trust when she tried to steal my house. Recording her was legal in Oregon and necessary to document her admission of guilt. Barbara tried a different angle. Mr. Chen, you're prosecuting your only grandchild. You're willing to send her to prison. Doesn't that seem excessively harsh for a family dispute? I looked at the jury. Ordinary people. Probably some of them had families. Some might have experienced betrayal. This isn't a family dispute, I said quietly. A family dispute is an argument about holiday plans or disagreement about politics. This is a crime. Emma didn't just hurt me emotionally. She attempted to steal property worth $800,000 through forged documents. If a stranger had done this, no one would question prosecution. Emma doesn't get special treatment just because we share DNA. The defense's case was weak. Barbara called a psychologist who testified vaguely about family trauma and complicated grief. Emma herself testified, crying on the stand, claiming she'd been confused about the documents and thought she was helping me with estate planning. But Tom's cross-examination destroyed her credibility. Ms. Chen, you testified that you thought these were estate planning documents. Then why did you tell Mr. Chen they were bank documents for mortgage refinancing? I misspoke. I was nervous. You misspoke for 2 days? I was trying to simplify. You were lying. And when Mr. Chen discovered your lie, you told him, quote, "You're going to die soon anyway. That house should be mine." Does that sound like someone confused about estate planning? Emma had no answer. She just cried. Devon didn't testify. Barbara wisely kept him off the stand after Tom indicated he'd impeached Devon's credibility with his prior California fraud conviction. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood. On the charge of attempted grand theft, guilty. On the charge of forgery, guilty. On the charge of identity theft, guilty. On the charge of filing a fraudulent document, guilty. Emma collapsed in her chair, sobbing. Devon sat frozen. Barbara closed her briefcase with a sharp snap. The sentencing hearing happened 2 weeks later. Judge Reardon looked at Emma with cold disapproval. Ms. Chen, you betrayed your grandfather's trust in the cruelest way imaginable. You exploited his love for you, his grief over your mother, and his loneliness. You attempted to steal his home through sophisticated fraud, showing clear premeditation and no remorse until you were caught. This court finds your actions reprehensible. 3 years in state prison on the theft charge, to run concurrently with 2 years each on the forgery and identity theft charges. Upon release, 5 years probation. You will pay full restitution to Mr. Chen for all legal fees. You will have no contact with Mr. Chen for the duration of your probation. A permanent restraining order is hereby issued. 3 years. Emma would be 27 when she got out. As the bailiff led Emma away in handcuffs, she looked at me one last time. Not with remorse, with hatred. I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Outside the courthouse, Tom shook my hand. You did it, Rob. Complete victory. Justice, I corrected. Not victory, justice. 6 months after Emma's sentencing, my life had transformed in ways I hadn't expected. The house, my home with Margaret, was finally, legally, irrevocably mine. The irrevocable trust I'd established protected it completely. My financial advisor had helped me set up a living will that ensured, when I did eventually pass, the house would be donated to a charity Margaret and I had supported, a shelter for domestic violence survivors. Emma would never get a penny. I'd started attending St. Mary's again. Father Michael had helped me work through the complicated emotions of prosecuting my granddaughter. The guilt, the anger, the grief for what could have been. Through our conversations, I'd made peace with my decision. I'd done the right thing. I'd protected myself, and potentially protected others from Emma's future schemes. Mrs. Kowalski and I had become closer friends. We had dinner together twice a week now. She'd introduced me to her book club, 8 retired neighbors who met monthly to discuss mysteries and thrillers. You lived through a thriller, one of them said. You should write it down. Maybe I would. I'd also reconnected with old colleagues from my notary days. A group of us met for coffee every Wednesday morning, sharing stories about our careers, our families, our lives. They'd all heard about Emma's trial. Many of them shared similar stories, children or grandchildren who'd tried to exploit elderly relatives, sometimes successfully. You're a hero to a lot of people, one colleague told me. You fought back. Most people are too scared or too ashamed. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a survivor. My health had improved too. The stress of the fraud attempt and the trial had taken a toll. My blood pressure had spiked, I'd lost weight, I'd barely slept. But now, with the matter resolved, I felt physically better. I'd started taking morning walks again, longer ones now. I'd joined a gym and worked with a trainer twice a week. At 72, I was in better shape than I'd been in years. I'd even started dating, cautiously. A woman named Helen, whom I'd met at church, a widow of 5 years. We went to movies, tried new restaurants, took day trips to the coast. Nothing serious yet, but it was nice to have companionship again, to laugh, to feel like life still held possibilities. The house felt lighter somehow. I'd redecorated Margaret's office, turning it into a proper library. I'd updated the kitchen. I'd hired a landscaper to restore Margaret's garden, which I'd neglected in my grief. The roses were blooming again. My lawyer, Tom, had become a genuine friend. We had lunch regularly, discussing everything from politics to philosophy to his grandchildren. He'd never send me a final bill for his work on the case. Consider it pro bono, he said, taking down an entitled brat who tried to steal from her grandfather. That was its own reward. Life was good, surprisingly good. Emma's life, by contrast, had collapsed completely. Through Detective Patterson, who occasionally updated me, I learned what had happened to her and Devon. Emma was serving her sentence at Coffee Creek Correctional Facility, Oregon's women's prison. She'd been denied early parole after failing to demonstrate remorse during her first review. The inmate continues to express anger toward her victim rather than accepting responsibility. The parole board noted. Her marketing job was long gone. The firm had fired her immediately after her conviction. A quick Google search of her name now returned news articles about the trial. Granddaughter convicted of attempting to defraud elderly relative. Her professional reputation was destroyed. Devon had abandoned her. 2 months into her sentence, he'd stopped visiting, stopped answering her calls. Patterson told me Devon had moved to Arizona and was living with another woman. Rats flee sinking ships, he'd said with a shrug. Emma's friends, the ones she'd bragged about during her fraudulent visit, had also disappeared. Her social media accounts, which I'd looked at once out of morbid curiosity, had gone silent. The last post before her conviction showed her and Devon at an expensive restaurant, champagne glasses raised, big smiles. The comments on that post, made after the trial, were brutal. Karma. Hope prison food is good. Thief. The BMW had been repossessed. It turned out the car was leased, and Emma had stopped making payments after her arrest. The apartment in Seattle she'd shown me photos of? Also gone. She'd been evicted for non-payment of rent. Her belongings had been sold at auction. Every piece of the life she'd tried to build on debt and lies had crumbled. Barbara Walsh, her lawyer, had been sanctioned by the Oregon State Bar for her courtroom conduct during the trial, specifically for suggesting I might be mentally incompetent without proper medical foundation. It was a minor sanction, just a formal reprimand, but it was on her record. And the debts Emma had mentioned in her fake apology letter? Those were real. Credit card companies had obtained judgments against her. When she eventually got out of prison, she'd owe over $200,000 to various creditors. She'd declared bankruptcy from prison, but some debts, student loans, court-ordered restitution to me, couldn't be discharged. She'd destroyed her life trying to steal mine. One afternoon in late spring, I stood in my backyard, looking at Margaret's roses in full bloom. Red, pink, yellow, a riot of color and fragrance. Margaret had loved this garden. I did the right thing, didn't I? I said aloud, as if she could hear me. I imagined her response. Of course you did. You protected yourself. You stood up for what's right. I'm proud of you. I thought about Emma sometimes. Not with hatred. I'd let go of that emotion. But with sadness. Sadness for what she could have been. If she'd called me 10 years ago and said, "Grandpa, I'm struggling financially. Can you help?" I would have helped. I would have given her money, advice, support. But she'd chosen deception instead. She'd chosen to view me as a mark, a target, an obstacle to be removed rather than a grandfather who loved her. That was her tragedy, not mine. I went back inside my house, my home, and made tea. Tonight, Helen and I were going to the symphony. Tomorrow, book club. Thursday, coffee with my notary friends. Friday, a checkup with Dr. Morrison, who'd probably tell me I was healthier than patients half my age. Life after 72 was pretty good. I'd survived betrayal. I'd won justice, and I'd discovered that my last chapter might be the best one yet. So that's my story. My granddaughter tried to steal my house, and I fought back. Here's my question for you. What would you have done? Would you have forgiven her? Dropped the charges? Or would you have done what I did? Pursued justice, no matter how painful? Family betrayal is one of the deepest wounds we can experience. But sometimes love means setting boundaries. Sometimes it means letting people face consequences. If you've experienced something similar, or if this story resonated with you, leave a comment below. Share your thoughts. And if you want to hear more stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary betrayals, subscribe to my channel. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there who's facing a similar situation. You're not alone, you're not crazy, and you have the right to protect yourself, even from family. Stay strong.